Hello and welcome back. Thank you, as always, for joining me today. We're going to talk today about the forgiven world, and we're going to do the best that we possibly can in the convention of words and language to point to truth. We're going to talk about awakening today. We're going to talk about enlightenment in this conversation, whatever you choose to call this, realization, liberation, going home, whatever term you prefer, that experience is what we're talking about. It is something that can only be experienced in truth because it's beyond all of our conventions here in the world. It goes beyond this spinning ball of rock and all of the apparent bodies that run around upon it. It goes beyond all of that. All of our conventions, indeed, all of our concepts, including language, including pixelated images on your screen, like the one that you're looking at on your device right now, goes beyond all of that. Truth can't be experienced with words. So just watching this video is not going to instantly enlighten you. Sorry. But that's not the way that works. It would be very, very convenient for us to think that sometimes. And there are days, don't get me wrong, where we all wish that, yeah, the Holy Spirit would just wave his hands like Obi-Wan Kenobi and make it all disappear. Yet that's not the way it works. We actually are the ones that make it all disappear one act of forgiveness at a time. And we do so with the Holy Spirit's loving guidance and steady guidance and certain guidance. Yeah, that's how we do it. So, who we are is beyond all concepts. All that I can do as a teacher, all pixelated image on your screen can do is use the convention of language to point. Actually, that's all any teacher could ever do is point. It's what we do. Along the way, you may become inspired to put these ideas into practice, which is how you learn, after all, because truth is experienced. It is known. Merely studying it is not enough, as we find out. We could spend a lifetime poring over each and every word and phrase of this course. People do. Or any spiritual tradition, or any compendium of thoughts, a spiritual book, something like that. We could spend, and you might say waste, countless hours, days, weeks, months, years, and decades debating the finer points. Yet, what spirituality is all about is experience. This is all about experience. So, that's how we learn, really. That is the best way for us to learn, is by taking these ideas. Is it important to understand them with the thinking mind? Sure. But that pales in comparison to actually putting them into practice. So if these ideas in A Course in Miracles seem confounding to you, that's quite common, right? No problem. You don't need to fully grasp them. Does that sound weird and maybe contradictory? All right, it's not. You don't have to fully grasp these ideas with the intellectual thinking mind in order to put them into practice. You don't. That's what the workbook is for. If you've done the workbook, you take a look at some of those early lessons, and nothing I see on this street means anything. I do not know what this car is for. I do not know what this shirt is for. I do not know what this nose is for. Why am I doing this? You may wonder. Well, we're being taught a different way of seeing. Our perception is upside down. Here, with this course, Jesus is teaching us one moment at a time to turn our perception right side up. How do we do this? One act of forgiveness at a time. Our perception is clouded. That's actually putting it quite nicely, isn't it? It's darkened and occluded, it's obscured, and we've thrown a veil over our eyes and think that the inside of the veil is our reality, because it's all we appear to see. Yet we can feel the light on the other side of it, and we begin to recognize the more we forgive, the more we start doing this work, we begin to realize just how thin that veil is and how quickly we could peel it all off. Even if it's one thin layer at a time, the light becomes more visible on the other side, which you can always feel anyway. That's what impels us on to the spiritual path, is knowing there's more to it than meeting the needs of this thing. And there certainly is, isn't there? So what do we do here? We can only point to truth. We can only point to awakening. Each and every one of us must walk the path. In other words, we got to do the work. Oh, I know. Were you expecting someone to come along and wave a magic wand and make it all go away? Guess what? You're that person to wave the magic wand. Doesn't necessarily happen all at once. However, here's what happens. Chapter 17, Section 2, The Forgiven World is the name of this section. This is the basis of our discussion today in the text. Chapter 17, Section 2. It's short, it's beautiful. I invite you to read it in its entirety. And then, having gotten to the end of it, I invite you to reread it uh, uh, in its entirety. And then I invite you to put it into practice where you really learn. Why do I keep harping on this? Well, because it is not necessary to have a full intellectual metaphysical grasp on all of these 1,300 pages of saying the same thing over and over again. Actually, it's not necessary to have a full intellectual understanding of anything before doing it, putting it into practice. That's how we really learn, after all, because our experience shows us, it demonstrates to us the truth of these ideas. So having some understanding of it is important, but people spend way too much time on that. And well, frankly, I'd love to have you save yourself some time because I'm not going to save it for you. But you could save some yourself by doing it. Here's what happens when you do it. Here's what happens when you forgive. Your perception begins to get lighter. As you peel layers off of the veil, which I find to be a very useful analogy for teaching purposes, it's very good because we begin to see the thinner the layers of cloth are, the fewer layers there are, the more you can see what's on the other side, the more you can feel it, and the more you begin to get a sense of just how lovely it is in the light. What the Course repeatedly refers to as the real world is our perception clarified, completely, 100% fully and totally clarified. It's our perception turned completely right side up. Right now, you may be experiencing some severe strain at times because your perception is not wholly upside down, but it's not totally right side up. So you may be feeling what comes across as conflict, a nagging doubt or a loud shouting doubt, a push and pull. Here's where we recognize something. And the quicker we recognize it, the better. You can't have both. You can't have the ego and God. They're mutually exclusive. One is true, the only reality. The other is nothing. So you can't have both. We cannot have both worlds. So we're invited to choose. And you know what we're invited to choose: joy, peace, happiness, love, the all with a capital A, yourself with a capital S. You know, that's what we're invited to choose. So, this particular section of the text, in very beautiful written language, talks about points to, because that's all we can do with the convention of words and language is point to truth, but it talks about what the Course refers to as the real world, our clarified perception. When we look out and we judge and blame, we see ugliness here in the world. Many countries right now are in the midst of a parliamentary or presidential election cycle. I can think of three major world players right off the top of my head, and I'm sure there are many more that are in the midst of it, in the throes of it, which invites the entire world to forgive. Because everyone has formed an opinion about the candidates, about the parties. Everyone. What's up to us is to recognize when something is less than wholly joyous and forgive. So, what happens here, chapter 17, section 2 of the text takes us through this in the convention of language, is that we see ugliness, like politics, when we look out on the world. I often use this as an example of the ego at play. I mean, what better example besides war could there be for defining and defending personal territory and demonizing everybody who doesn't fall into your certain camp? Loving on them, maybe hating on a bunch of them, actually. Because you're just together because you're voting for somebody, and then you're going to go your separate ways. But what better example of the ego at play could there possibly be? It's why I continually bring it up. It's a good example of the need for forgiveness in this world. Which, by the way, doesn't mean you have to agree with somebody else's point of view. That's not what we're saying. Remember, this course isn't about effecting change in the world of form. It's not about influencing the outcome of a political, presidential, or parliamentary election at all. That's not what it's about. It's about you clarifying your perception. What happens when you forgive is what once was ugly and black becomes lovely. The real world is the forgiven world. It is the world that we made, this thing, completely forgiven. Rather than seeing ugliness, division, separation, hatred, pain, and fear, we see loveliness, joy, peace, radiance. This is our perception fully clarified. Almost instantaneously, this clarified perception is translated into knowledge. This is awakening. It's said here in A Course in Miracles, God takes the final step himself, but first we must ready ourselves for him. Yeah, we first clarify our perception, then boom. It's translated into knowledge, experience, enlightenment beyond words, joy, peace, the peace of God. And we recognize along the way that we've never left our source. Capital S, please. Ideas leave not their source, and you are an idea. The thought of God, yeah, the Son of God, God's creation, all of us are, each and every one of us is. That's why it's said here and repeated so often in A Course in Miracles that forgiveness is either total or it is not at all. Because you can't keep certain forms of hatred, say, for the opposition political party, and expect to awaken. Awakening only comes when our perception is completely and fully clarified. Then it's translated into knowledge. It goes beyond perception entirely. It goes beyond perception entirely. Truth is beyond our conventions here in the world. It's beyond all of our concepts, including language. It's certainly well beyond compound physical bodies that don't last anyway. Perception, we keep talking about it here in A Course in Miracles, which is purely non dual in nature. That means that it states it like it is. God is the only reality. All else is illusion. Ideas leave not their source, by the way. Son of God. Who are you? What are you? Where are you? Truly, yeah. Looks like we're right here having political elections, parliamentary elections, and everybody's concerned about what may or may not happen. It's where we appear to find ourselves. So, what do we have but massive opportunity to forgive? The more we forgive, the more loveliness, joy, perfect oneness, and radiance we see. What once was ugly is beautiful. If you've begun this journey, you'll know if you've been doing the work, if you've been doing the work, see how that works, right? You'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. We're replacing our upside down perception with clarified perception. We're seeing things as they are. Then we go beyond perception completely. Perception is dualistic. It is the world of duality. It involves a subject and an object, a perceiver and the thing or person or being or whatever concept perceived. Non-duality means not two. Pure non-duality says God is the only reality. That's where this course fits. Only God is. Happily for all of us, it does not mean our extinction, rather life itself. Ideas leave not their source. The more we forgive, the more we see the real world, which, by the way, our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, can't wait. He does wait very patiently, but really wants to show us. So we give our inner teacher the reins, full control. We see with him. Along the way, we may have glimpses of this. What we're talking about in this video and in this course is full and complete awakening, where your perception is completely right side up, and God takes the final step himself. You're enlightened, absorbed into him. It's awakening, enlightenment, liberation. We may call it going home, whatever you want to call this. You may get glimpses of this along the way. Many of you have. Many of you have, yet you can comfortably rest assured that if you're back judging your brother, if you're back unforgiving, that's not full and complete enlightenment. Read some of this language. The world that we appear to inhabit simply falls away. The stars disappear into light. This world, spinning ball of rock, solar systems, compound bodies, all vanish. Now, to the extent that we still cling to the supposed reality of the physical body and want to listen to the ego, that can seem scary, like this is positing our extinction, oblivion. It is anything but that. There is only life. There is no death. The Son of God is free. That's a lesson from the workbook. You know this to be true deep down, or I'm quite certain that you would not be here. So you know more than you think you do. You're more powerful than you could possibly imagine. So will you join me today? Please. And thank you. So if you wanted a deep conversation that doesn't mess around, you're in the right place. If you have not yet subscribed, I would love to have you join us. Please do that. This is the prompt here in the corner of your screen. Click that arrow. You'll be invited to subscribe. Do that. Several videos appear each week. Now, along the way, questions are inevitable, and I do want to definitely welcome your questions or comments here in the comment thread. Even if you just want to pop in and say hello, I'd love to hear from you. Well, I'll say a couple words here about questions, and then we'll wrap up. Often we're very hesitant to ask, aren't we? I mean, this is true in business or in school, in a relationship. We feel a fear, a trepidation of sorts in piping up and asking, because we don't want to seem like we're too much of a rank beginner, like we're dumb, we call ourselves, things like that. How unhelpful, right? To call yourself dumb. The best questions on the spiritual path that you could ever ask are those that appear to be the most basic, and the ones that you're maybe afraid to ask. Those are the best. The basic questions are great. Please don't hesitate if you have them, because there could be a long-time student of this course, and there are many of you out there that will know exactly what I'm saying here. The 500th time you hear something or you hear a question and hear it answered might be the time that you really get it, and you don't know that. So, in asking a basic question, you are not only helping yourself, but you're also helping everyone else. which you're doing anyway, because there is no separation of any kind. But staying with this example, you could positively impact and influence the journey, the trajectory of somebody on the other side of the world whom you're highly unlikely ever to meet in person, right? Because of the sheer number of us that appear to inhabit this spinning ball of rock. 8 billion plus. That's a big number. So we can use this tool called YouTube for the benefit of all of us. We can use this tool to spread love. That's what's going on right now, sharing the Holy Spirit with one another. So, questions if you've got them, they'd be most welcome. And I thank you all for joining me. We'll see you soon.